The VAUXHALL Vagabond by Alex Edwards. Pour yourself another glass of that claret and I'll answer that question you've all been wondering at. Come now, let's not stand on ceremony. You're sat here puzzling how a low-born Vauxhall cove should be all set up like a country squire, with a monocle on his smashed fizz and gold rings on his calloused fingers, in the finest of London clubs, and all the staff bowing and scraping like he was the Queen of Sheba. Well, let me tell you. Now in them days, I was a sailor of Her Majesty's Merchant Marine, but more than that, I was a drunk and an opium fiend to boot. I picked up the habit in old Peking on account of dreams, bad dreams I was having, which I blamed on things what I saw when we fought them taipangs and burnt the Summer Palace in '60. I preferred the peace of that black opium sleep, even to the bottle, for I was a vicious drunk in them days. It was a drink what caused me to kill a man over a turn of cards. They couldn't prove nothing, for he had a knife and me only my fists, but they feared me. And when the Atlantic Empress reached East India docks that cold December, they cast me off without a penny to my name. Oh, I had wages due, but after fines for drunkenness and assault, there were nothing left. And so it was that I came to find myself in the same gutter what I was swept up from as an urchin boy 30 years previous, with nothing save a face full of scars and a head full of nightmares and a terrible itch for a smoke of opium. I don't suppose good folk like yourself ever been taken to the opium. Let me tell you, the itch for it is like nothing on God's earth. So there I was, walking the nighttime streets of an East End to which I'd been a stranger these 30 years, hidden in the winter fog and the fug of coal smoke. If I seen you coming the other way, I would have robbed you, sir, struck you down and taken anything and everything you had. You see, I've sailed to the four corners of this earth, and I've never met a fellow who I'd give better than even odds against me in a heavyweight prize fight. But by God's grace, I saw nobody. Now, after a time, my hands began to shake for want of poppy, and I felt a nip cold even on that warm night. By and by, I saw the light of a fire and a gathering of beggars around an open brazier. I drew up to it and gave them all a look, so none said a word. I warmed myself for a time, took stock of the group. There was drunks and harlots and thieves, and I paid them no mind, so fixed was I on the smoke. But then I saw one gent what took my interest. He was an older fella, thin as a waif, but what drew my eye was his fine spectacles. For no man in the East End of them days had need of spectacles. An educated man, brought low, perhaps a fellow poppy fiend like myself. I watched him, and I saw how every so often he would look at something hid in his greatcoat, his dull eye sparkling avaricious-like. Presently he rose and I followed him. He rounded a corner. I took his collar and I set him upon the ground. I showed him my fist and he seemed to faint away at the sight. Beneath his coat he was finely dressed but moth-eaten and filthy. I rifled his pockets and drew out a great stone, a sapphire, bright blue and big as an egg. So big it was that at first I thought it must be paste or glass, but I know paste. And this were real. I took that stone and I ran. I ran till my breath gave out, then hid myself down an alley and looked again at my prize. Glittering it was, and within its depths I saw pinks and greens that swirled about. I looked deep and fancied I saw faces and moving figures. Perhaps I slept then or was taken by an opium fever. I've said before that I've had strange dreams, but I fancied I saw scenes appearing before my eyes. Now, I was Bible raised in the orphanage, and I know what I saw. I saw the pyramids of Egypt and Pharaoh on his throne. I saw Moses and the plagues and Exodus all played out like a magic lantern show, like I was there. I looked again, and this time I saw the old Greeks in their togas like the Elgin marbles. I saw Alexander's wars and his lewd debaucheries. I saw it all, and I could hear their voices and con their speech. I looked a third time, but only saw the pinks and greens deep within. I felt a terrible longing to see more, worse than any craving for drink or poppy. Indeed, that was gone, and I felt fresh as if awaking from a long sleep. An hour later I was in a back office in Hatton Garden, a jeweller examining the stone with his loupe. See, I passed the whole thing off as a dream, and thinking clearly for the first time in years, I'd chosen to make a quick sale of the gem. I gave out I was a sailor, which was true, and that I'd come upon the stone in my travels, which was also true. Now the jeweller was calling for his clerk and telling me the price, 100 guineas, if you please. He told the lad to fetch the money box and a telegram. I watched the jeweller make out the telegram, reading upside down, for I had my letters. He made it out to a Sir John Palance, telling him that an item of interest had been found and come urgently. The jeweller's hands were shaking worse than mine had been an hour ago. They began carrying out the money quick as you like, so quick I knew it was sharp practice. Even at 100 guineas, I was only getting a fraction of the true value, but more than that, I wanted the stone. To see the jeweller holding it made me covetous, as if I'd seen him grasp a woman I'd taken a fancy to. I snatched the stone back and shouted, "No deal!" He yelled for his lads, but quick as a flash, I ran out the office and into the street. I took to my heels then, even as I heard him behind me calling out for peelers. I ran down to Blackfriars and was over the bridge before I stopped. I thought of nothing but looking at the jewel again. I peered into the sea blue thing, and once more strange scenes begun to swim before my eyes. This time I saw Hannibal on his elephant and a great battle at a place called Cannae. 60,000 of Romans killed by swords. I saw it all. Then it was Caesar. Then Nero. I saw his pleasures and crimes, and they was the same. Horrible, shameful things he'd done. Turned my stomach. Just like them things I saw at Peking all them years ago. I tore my eyes away, and once more I felt the longing to gaze upon it, but I knew it then for what it was. I knew to look upon it more would be a fate worse than opium slavery. And so it was that I wandered the streets of Vauxhall, sorely tempted to look at the cursed treasure in my pocket at every turn. I chanced upon a parson on some errand and asked if he knew of a Sir John Powers and where he might reside. Presently I found myself before a fine house in Knightsbridge and rapped upon the door. A butler answered and bid me be gone, but I showed him the stone and I was granted entrance. I was taken to a study full of books, and after a time Sir John came in. He was a big fella, bigger than I, which is saying something, with a strong chin, a tan, smooth face, and a cruel mouth. I placed the stone upon the table, and he looked at it, very cool. He asked if he might examine it, and I nodded. He looked into it, and I saw its bluish light in his eyes. He peered into it for the longest time, turning it this way and that. God alone knows what he saw there. At length he placed it back on the table and sunk into his chair. When he spoke, his voice was far away and sing-song. He told me that the Egyptians had called it the Stone of Thoth, and that the Greeks knew it as the Eye of Kronos. He told me that Herodotus had known of it and used it to write his histories, and before that Solon, Plato's teacher, had used its power to learn of the fate of Atlantis. Each man staring into them blue depths and imagining riding with kings and potentates in them ancient times. He asked me how I came by it, but I shook my head and told him straight that it was my business. He replied that he would have it at any price and named a lofty sum. Again, I shook my head. He doubled the figure, but still I refused, for I could see the longing in every fibre of his body. Then he reached into his desk and began to draw out a pistol. But I saw what he was about, sprang to my feet, struck him about the face with a left jab and a right hook such that he fell against the bookcase. I seized the pistol and he set up a roaring for his man, who burst in brandishing a poker. But again, I was too quick for these gentlefolk and trained the pistol upon him. They stopped then, and both men saw that to try and take me would end in tribulation. Bid them sit down, and then, very casual-like, I placed the stone upon the table and held the butt of the pistol above it. I told them I would rather see the gem crushed than have it taken by force. Sir John was cowed by that, for I could see he wanted the jewel something fearful. He stuttered that I could have 5,000, then 10. I told him it would cost him everything he owned to have it from me. His house, his fortune, his lands, all. He nodded, without never taking his eyes off the glittering jewel, and I told him he should summon a lawyer and have it made legal. In due time his man arrived from Temple Bar. When he heard of the plan, the lawyer and the butler both began to wail and lament, but when I told both men I'd retain them in service and double their pay, they was mollified. So it was, that very night, the papers was drawn up, all legal, and Sir John left the house with his valise and travelling things, and that great sea blue sparkling sapphire in his coat pocket. And I remained within, master of all. And so it is you see me today, a man of wealth and means, with a fortune and estates, a young wife of noble stock. In short, all the blessings a man could wish for on this earth. Yet, I often think of that gem and the things what it showed me, and sometimes I even long to see more of its secrets. But I know that such knowledge be a curse. That even then I had seen enough of this world's evils to be content in my ignorance.